Hey folks, VJ Lakshman here. I'm the author of Mythborn, and I'm super excited to be sharing the world and just the entire process I went through to build it. So I thought to start our Facebook live event, and the first one we've done, a couple of caveats. One, this is the first one we've done, so we'll probably make mistakes. Two, if there's dead air, then I'm going to go nuts. So hopefully my friends will jump in and ask me questions. And three, I thought the way this would work, because it's going to be me talking for 20 minutes and trying to answer questions people throw up into the chat box, will be to give you guys a little intro on me, a little background on the things that I think influenced Mythborn, and then talk a little bit about the Mythborn, the universe, the characters, Edyn, the world, and then what I see coming up. For those of you who have been following Mythborn, book 1 is out. Book 2 will be out this weekend. We're just waiting on some fantastic, fabulous art from my amazing book cover creator, Raymond Lejin. For those of you who have been aware of and seen the book covers he's come up with, they are absolutely fantastic. And so we want to make sure we got the best cover out there for book 2. But the book is done and it's ready to go. I just got to hit the little send publish button on KDP. And then for book 3, we're in editing. It'll be out probably the next month. And book 4, we're targeting for the end of summer. So I think things are really trucking along. I'm actually more than 3/4 of the way done writing book 4. And book 5 has been completely outlined. So I'm pretty excited about delivering book 5 to you guys, hopefully before the end of the year. So let's start. Mythborn. Mythborn really began because I grew up at a time when fantasy was just everything to me. Believe it or not, I grew up in Bangkok, Thailand. And when I moved to the United States, my father is a doctor. When we moved here, he decided that Wisconsin would be the place to go. So I went from a subtropical South China Sea, never seen snow, to a whiteout condition in, just south of Canada. I literally had never seen snow. I didn't know what ice was. I frankly thought Americans must be the greatest warriors in the world because they walked around with blades on their feet. And then I realized those were for skating on ice. So total culture shock. But what it did do is just create me at a very young age. I was about 8 or 9 years old. It created this wonder, this willingness to just be amazed by the world itself. So I think Mythborn was influenced by that because I realized when I write, I want to bring that kind of just that momentary lapse of reason, to quote a song that I love, and just lose yourself in a world like Mythborn. For those of you who know anything about me or have watched that, I was originally a video game designer. I did about 85 titles. The first few were awesome learning experiences. Another way of saying I made every mistake you could possibly make in the book. But my third title was Elder Scrolls Arena. And it was the birth of what has become the largest and most successful RPG franchise on the planet. And that's not underestimating or understating its success. I attribute 99% of that to the amazing team at Bethesda and how well they took a lot of the notes and maps and different ideas that we had been talking about and really built a world far beyond anything I could have done on my own or at that time. So from Elder Scrolls, I did another 85 video game titles at various companies. I got to work with the great folks at Looking Glass. I worked on Thief the Dark Project. I worked on Flight Unlimited. I got to work with the awesome folks over at FASA on Battletech, Mech Commander. I designed a game called Shadowrun Assassin. I then went on and had a chance to work at Universal, where I got a chance to see some greats like Mark Cerny and and Ted Prince and other people, Ted Price and other people who worked on Spyro and Crash. Just really inspirational stuff. Ultimately, I got a chance to come back to the East Coast from LA, and we, started a company basically to help folks who wanted to get into games, And when I say folks, I mean companies. My first client was National Geographic. What an amazing opportunity. Here was a place that I had grown up looking at, had taken people to all over the world, and suddenly I was working there. I couldn't believe it. I was just so lucky. And my wonder of the world never changed. I had a chance now to not only be part of that wonderful world, but be part of a company that celebrated that world in every single way possible. So very, very lucky to be doing that. When I was there, we did 38 or so titles that came out of there over the 3 years I was there. And one of them was Animal Jam with the great guys over at Smart Bomb, Clark Stacey and his whole team. Animal Jam ended up being one of the top kids MMOs to ever launch, and I think they just killed it when it came to building something interactive and fun. So long story short, lots of gaming. Had a great time learning about how to go about building amazing stories and worlds. I think what gaming did for me is really hone the skill set needed to be creative, or to understand how to be creative when there were times I didn't feel super creative. You have to understand that in video game development, there's millions of dollars at stake, and it resides and rests in the hands of the team building it. So management oftentimes has to spend a lot of time trying to make sure that people are doing their best. One of the things that I think, sorry, we have people in the background and there's going to be some noises, but we'll do our best to try and keep the interruptions and the noise to a standstill. But one of the things to get back to what I was saying, you can't force someone to be creative. So we came up with ways in which we could remember or create inspiration for people to be creative when they didn't feel like it. So a lot of those techniques and skills I've been using to keep myself generating great content, I hope great content, for Mythborn at a regular pace. So let's see. What are the inspirations that I see for Mythborn? Well, I've really enjoyed fantasy, like I said. I've also really enjoyed science fiction. Some of the huge influencers for me were people like Richard K. Morgan with Altered Carbon. I read the novels. I thought they were amazing. Most recently, Netflix released the television show, and I think they did an exceptional job of translating what would be a very difficult novel, I thought, to translate to the television screen. It was engaging. If you got a chance to see it, I would recommend super opportunities. I would recommend it super highly. Go in, have a look. I mean, this whole universe is about people who can change bodies and wear sleeves, and I think it was just brilliant, just brilliantly done. Another big influencer for me was Peter F. Hamilton and his series called The Neutronium Alchemist. What a world. I mean, he envisioned a world in the future where death is no longer an issue. We're pretty much hard disks that are implanted, in people, and you have a relatively immortal lifetime. But what do those people do for fun? And when you run into problems, how do you solve those problems when death isn't really a problem anymore? One of the things that's really interesting about the story is he combined science fiction with fantasy, because he had the worlds that were held by the human domain were invaded by essentially zombies. And what now you had was this clash of technology and of fantasy, and that was definitely an inspirational note for me when it came to Mythborn. I can't not mention Orson Scott Card. I can't even know where to begin. I mean, obviously Ender's Game, everyone knows that. But what about the Farseer Trilogy? I mean, it's about an assassin, a kid, the bastard son of a prince, and the adventures of Fitz Chivalry and the way he goes about running, the way he goes about growing up. It just blew me away. It was written in the first person. I thought Farseer Trilogy by Robin Hobb. Robin Hobb did such a great job of building that whole entire thing up. And let me just back up. So Orson Scott Card, obviously Ender's Game, all that stuff. I couldn't get him off my mind. I think I threw his name out there early, but wow. I mean, if you've seen Ender's Game, or if you've read the books, if you've read about Bean, if you've read about all the things that go on with Ender and Bean and his brother Peter and all the things there, I mean, it is quintessential reading if you enjoy science fiction. Now on to Robin Hobb and the Farseer Trilogy. Story about an assassin, Fitz Chivalry, written in the first person. I learned so many skills in reading that book. I remember there's a moment during the reading when something happens to the main character, and it was an emotional moment for me because I had to stop reading, and then I don't know if you guys have ever felt this before, but I actually wanted to read slower so that the moment would last longer, and that is a powerful way to be a writer. And I hope one day to have moments like that in Mythborn. Let's see. I think you really can't get away from where fantasy has grown to and gone unless you include George R.R. Martin and Game of Thrones. I mean, here's a person who's taken fantasy and taken it from the place where we, the community of game players, geeks, nerds, technophiles, and techno savvy folk, he took it from that and he took it to the mainstream audience. I mean, it's got to say something when my mom calls me and asks me what's going to happen to, I think, to the Starks. It's one of those surreal moments where you have a Indian mother calling you about something happening in Winterfell. You can't make that up. It's the kind of stuff that I got to remember and write about sometime. Now, every single one of these authors has taught me something special about how to write, how to read, and how to like elicit emotion, how to elicit all kinds of stuff. One of the things that I want to make sure I go through is a couple of the games that influenced me too, and then we'll get on to things about like Mythborn, the books, and what goes on. It's great because when you guys are typing things up, they pop up so that everyone can read them, and it's really helpful because it gives me a little list of things to go through. So you guys are actually helping me plan out my thought process, and I appreciate that. So clearly, I love RPGs. I mean, I designed an RPG as one of my very first games. Right now, I'm playing Divinity 2: Original Sin. I think the tactical combat mixed with the amazing character class customization is really awesome. I've been playing XCOM 2. I love turn-based combat. I think XCOM 2 might be the quintessential turn-based combat game that's out there currently. I've been playing They Are Billions, zombie apocalypse. I love seeing billions of zombies coming at my fortress, so that's definitely cool. Northgard, I think that the Steam early access on Northgard and now the game itself have proved to be really cool if you like Vikings and if you like real-time strategy and city building. It's really cool. And I just got Frostpunk. I have turned it on and watched the opening. I want to play it, and every time I begin to play it, I'm told to go back to writing, so I'll sneak in some time later and let you guys know what I think. Why am I telling you about games? Well, because When I decided that I was going to become a writer full-time, I talked to my best friend and also president of Dawn's Light Media, who is the lead on all the Mythborn books, and we said, let's not just do writing. Let's do the books, but let's also do a video game. Let's make sure that we write a television script. Let's make sure that we have a movie script ready to go. So we expect to expand Mythborn into a giant multi-format event. And you can be guaranteed there will be a video game. You can be guaranteed we are going to try and get it onto the television screen, onto the movie screens, as an animated series. And you will, I think, enjoy not just the 5 books of the Mythborn series, but the world itself, which I've built so that the next series, Techborn, will be built into the same universe and really expand on it and bring that merging of science and fantasy together in a way that I think will be unique, interesting, and mind-blowing, I hope. So, Mythborn, what's it about? Well, I wanted to write the story of a bad guy, and not like a bad guy like the kind like that sits in a tower and wonders. Well, actually, that's a great point. So one of the things that I wondered all the time was, when you have a character like Saruman standing, sitting in a tower, looking down, and telling people to destroy and to whatever he says, and then he kills the guard who comes with bad news, or whoever this ultimate bad guy is, and now he's by himself and the scene ends. In real life, what does he do? Like, he's in a tower by himself. I didn't see any furniture in that scene. I don't know where he sits. I don't know. There's another guard somewhere that's going to bring food up to him at some point. I mean, he's pretty high up. And I think one of the really laughing and entertaining moments was when you looked at J.J. Abrams' take on Star Wars, and when the new Sith Lord in Kylo comes out of the elevator and he's smashing everything, and those 2 stormtroopers turn the corner and they like stop and then they turn and walk the other way. That made sense to me. Like, who would go around the bad guy when he's in that mood? What guard would come upstairs to deliver bad news? I mean, so I just found these scenes to be what I call, what I think is termed white room syndrome. And what that means is that a lot of times they're written so that the scene can be written, but not because they're connected to anything else in the world, and not because there's any consequence to the actions that are going on there. They essentially are a green screen or a backdrop, so that 2 characters or a character and someone else can interact. And that to me seemed very artificial. It seemed not to have a ring of realism around it. And one of the things that I think we face as fantasy writers is people think it's easy to write fantasy because you can do anything you want, but you really can't. Like, you have to have even a more stringent rule set so that people believe the fantasy that you're writing. And as a result, what I realized was there will never be a version of my book where there's just a scene and a backdrop and then something happens. I wanted that scene to be part of the living world of Edyn, the world where Mythborn takes place. So in the descent of a person from one place to another, and I hesitate to call it good to evil, I think it's more aligned and unaligned. I looked at it like this. Ultimately, character A will like character B as long as character B is doing something to further character A's desires. And if character B becomes diametrically opposed to characters A's desires, then to each other, they're both evil. And whoever wins is going to write the history and portray that person as evil, as dastardly, as whatever. And I think that you see that in real life all the time. You see it when people get divorced. You see it when people break up friendships. They break up, any relationship they have. The other person was the person at fault, always. But really, it's 50-50, and really in the end, There's a lot of human emotion happening during that descent. And so I wanted to capture that in the path of my main character, Eric. He starts out as a young apprentice, learning how to be sort of a warrior monk assassin. His master, Sylvain, is literally a living weapon. Eric has been in this world, has been basically training. He's about 17 years old. And through a number of little circumstances, he finds out that because of a unique ability he has to negate magic, he has been designated by the monks that run his order to be thrust into a gate that's open between Edyn and the world of Arcadia. This gate is open from time to time, and whenever it does, demons flood through, they possess people, and then they disappear. This time, because of the amount of damage that had been done during the last demon wars, magic has been outlawed. Because magic has been outlawed under pain of death, there are very few mages left in the world, very few people to protect them from this rift opening. So, a difficult time without many solutions calls for an awful solution, and that is the sacrifice of one to sort of protect the many. And I remember a moment of inspiration about this, because I was rarely does television shock me, but I will tell you, and this goes back some years, so clearly we've all matured, but there was an episode of 24 with Kiefer Sutherland where the terrorists called in and they said, if you don't execute the CTU director by a certain time, we'll release a super virus, a toxin in the city, or a nuclear bomb. I can't remember which one it was. But the point was, ultimately, they sequestered that CTU director. He couldn't leave. They disarmed him. And then ultimately, Kiefer Sutherland executed him. Jack Bauer killed him. And I thought to myself, that can't really happen, can it? Like, can an FBI agent be ordered to die in order to save an entire city? And if he can't, I mean, I actually found myself arguing both sides. It's like, shouldn't he be ordered to die if it's going to save the whole city? And also, is it fair that he dies if it saves the whole city? Even if it saves the whole city, like, what would his family think? So I wrestled with that. I Googled it. I couldn't find an answer. I'm sure it's top secret. My friend who knows probably wouldn't tell me. So I got stuck with trying to find the answer on my own, which I couldn't. And I couldn't get it out of my mind. And I thought to myself, what happens? What happens if this kid finds out he's going to be killed because it's the best thing for the world? Does he allow it? Does he not allow it? And what does it do to his psyche? And so that's what the story in Mythborn 1 happens. It takes 8 days, and it counts down each day towards where he's going to be executed. And the choices he makes, some good, some bad. And when I say good and bad, I mean in relation to what's good for him or bad for him. Other people, based on his choices, think of him as a good guy or a bad guy. And I think the reason why people love reading Mythborn and have gotten so much good feedback on it is they can identify with someone stuck in a situation where there are no good answers. And they're not a bad person. They're just trying to stay alive or just trying to do the thing they need to do. So I think that what's really amazing with the character of Mythborn is that Eric is just like anyone else. And how much can you take before you start doing things you would never thought you would do in order to stay alive and fight another day? So I think what's great about the series is he's an amazingly conflicted and interesting character. The Princess Yateji is one of his companions. She's bright, she's beautiful, she's badass in every way, and I hope they beat that. But she's amazing, and And what I thought was a huge amount of praise to me was someone on Facebook wrote, I grew up on, fantasy and science fiction, and I read a little, and lo and behold, the dragons are a-holes. The prince is a mamby-pamby, kid, and the princess is the badass prince, and Eric is, the kid stuck between a rock and a hard place. And I thought that was cool. That was cool. That's exactly what I wanted to achieve. I wanted to have characters who weren't black and white, that they were shades of gray. And I hope every single one of you give the book a chance, read through it. It is not what you think. It starts with stuff that you probably are familiar with, fantasy type stuff like dwarves and elves. But believe me, the world of Eden is not what you think. Everything in that world has a reason for existing. Every sentence I write, there's a reason behind it. And if you give the book a chance, you'll see magic in this world, it actually could be real based on how this world has been put together. For more information, make sure that you guys check out www.mythbornmedia.com. And my erstwhile team is putting up online where you guys can see it too. You can contact me through my website. You can contact me through my Facebook page. I've mentioned the website, so now they can check off the green thing and not be angry at me. Check out the books. Go to Amazon. Read the reviews. Those people bought the book, they read it, and they said what they thought, and it's got over, a 4.3 or better after 85 reviews. There are more reviews coming inbound. Books 2 and 3 are done. Book 4 is halfway done, and book 5 will be launching. All of this is going to be out, I hope, by the end of the year. I really, really can't wait to get this. Into the video game format. I really can't wait to see it on television or as a movie. It's all going to happen. Believe me, my entire career here in Hollywood at National Geographic, as in every single phase of life that I've done, has been working towards this moment, making Mythborn the greatest it can be. And I sincerely hope every single one of you join me for it. Thank you so much. I hope you guys have a great day. Peace out.
And now we're ending.